practicing being blind. I'm not peeking. In fact, I'm going to use both hands. Can you make yourself blind? Close your eyes and put your hands over. Look around. Do you see anything? My eyes are closed and they're covered with my hands. Must be pretty wild to be blind. What do you think? I don't think I would like to be blind. What do you think it's like living day to day blind? Think it's hard? Probably, especially if you've never been blind, then all of a sudden you go blind. Well, I wonder what it would be like for somebody who likes to be, like somebody who's a real proud and arrogant person, to go blind. What would happen? They would be humbled, wouldn't they? If they were a very proud and arrogant person, then all of a sudden they went blind. It would humble them, for sure. Today we're going to read a choral reading, actually, but it's taken from the account of when Paul was on the road, or Saul was on the road to Damascus. So we're going to be reading a choral reading. Now, a choral reading is something that not really two people can do. We're going to do it. You're going to think it's kind of like a play, but a choral reading is not like a play. Remember when we first started and we did that play where I would read a few lines and you'd read some? Well, a play is different than a choral reading, because in a play you actually act and you do your part. You do things. You walk over here and you do this and you do this and you blah, blah, blah. But a choral reading, you don't. Now, a choral reading is an old thing. It was developed by the Greeks many years ago. And they would do this as a form of entertainment. And they would usually have one person standing at the front, maybe two, and they would be the lead people. And they would just stand there and they would have things to say. They didn't move, they didn't act. They would just say these things. And in the back behind them or over on the side would be a whole, like a chorus of people. And they would have, after the person up here would talk, the chorus back there would all together say something. And sometimes it was verses, sometimes it was, whatever. And they would say it. And the only moving they would do is sometimes they would step this way, or they might step this way, or they might step back, or they might step forward. And that's pretty much all the movement that they did, but they did it all together. But it was called a choral reading. They're beautiful if you ever hear one where it's a lot of people. Now, you and I are going to do this together, but it's not going to sound the same as if it was a real choral reading. So, before we get started, well, actually, you need to look in your reader book on page 86. And I'm going to go ahead and change screens, and I'm going to show you just a couple of words that you're going to run across in our reading today, and then we'll go ahead and determine who's going to be what and what we're going to read, and we'll get started, okay? Okay, here's our words. Let's read the first one. The earthquake brought havoc to the city. What is havoc? What do you think havoc is? And sometimes it's spelled without the K, but this one's going to have the K. Havoc. That's like crazy stuff. Havoc is like chaos, crazy things. What about the next one? The police were hailing the troublemakers out of the ballpark. Hailing. That would be like taking them, like gathering them up and taking them out. What about Jews meet at synagogues to worship God? A synagogue is a place of worship for a Jewish person. All right, so let's look in your book on page 86, Now, this choral reading is taken from the King James Version of the Bible, which is the version that I read. And the word shew, S-H-E-W, is just an old spelling for the word show, like show me something, okay? This is taken from the book of Acts, chapter 8, 1 through 3, and 9, verses 1 through 20. Now, if you'll look at the readers there on page 86, you have reader 1 and reader 2. So reader 1 is Saul. Reader 2 is Ananias. Then you have chorus 1, which are the light voices. Chorus 2, which is the medium voices, and chorus 3, which are the dark voices, which are the like deeper voices. All right, so I'll be reader 1, Saul. You be reader 2, Ananias. And then you and I both will have to be all the choruses. So anytime it says chorus 1, 2, or 3, you and I will have to read it together. But if it says reader 2, you read it, okay? All right, look over on page 87. Look at the very top. It says, in the years after Christ's ascension, the early church suffered persecution from unbelievers. Many of Christ's followers were thrown into prison, and some of them died for their faith. One man became especially well known as a hater and persecutor of the church, Saul of Tarsus. But when Saul met the Lord on the road to Damascus, he became a new creature. Okay, now you see where it starts out, it says all, that means everybody, and of course that'll be me and you. Okay, here we go, we're ready, here we go. And at that time there was a great persecution against the church which was at Jerusalem. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church. Did you say that with me? Okay, this is me and you, courses 1 and 2. Entering into every house and hailing men and women, committed them to prison. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus. And suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. Look at the very top of page 88. Saul understood immediately what the Lord meant. He had seen the pricks used to prod cattle pulling carts. If the cattle were stubborn and kicked backwards, they hurt their legs on the pricks until they started forward again. Okay, it starts with choruses 1 and 2. That means it's you and me. Ready? And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man. But they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias. And to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, This is you. And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in, and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, This is you, go ahead. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will shew him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. And Ananias went his way and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him said, This is you. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith, and arose, and was baptized. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Then was Saul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus. And straightway he preached Christ in the synagogues, that he is the Son of God. Okay, now that's a choral reading. Now it sounds a whole lot better when there's a whole lot of people doing it, and different people would be saying different things, and it's really cool. But it's not as fun when there's only just 2 people doing it. Okay, look in your work text. There's 2 pages, but we're only going to do 1 today. So if you'll turn to page 34, we're going to skip page 33. So if you'll look on page 34, now the page that you're going to be doing today has nothing to do with the choral reading that we just did. That was just to kind of introduce you to a different kind of reading, okay? So what I'd like for you to do on page 34, this is your assignment. It is not going to be graded, but I do want to see it. At the top of page 34, it says, a fiction story has made up characters and events. So fiction is false. Non-fiction writing gives facts and details about real people, places, and things. So non-fiction is true. So what your job is to do, it says to read each of these paragraphs. If it's true, then you put non-fiction. If it's not true and made up, then you write fiction. Okay? That's your assignment for the day, and that's all for the week.